So there's 4 accounts of the resurrection in the Gospels, and each one has its own kind of unique take on the story. Mark ends with the words, "They said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid." Matthew has an earthquake. In Luke, it says the women shared the news, but the words seemed to be an idle tale, and the men did not believe them. The reading from John that you just heard is the most familiar. In this gospel, Mary Magdalene comes to the tomb, and she sees that the stone has been rolled away. So she goes to get Peter and John. They run to the tomb and see the grave clothes and go home. Really? Jesus has died. His body is missing, and they went home? But Mary stood there weeping. I love the line from the First Nation version that says, her heart was on the ground. I feel like I could live with that line for a long time. So we treat the Easter story as if it's about chocolate and bunnies, when in fact, it is steeped in grief. Jesus has been crucified. I read something this week about tears helping us see more clearly. There's something about the way they inform our vision and give us the capacity to find new perspective. And it made me wonder if it's like that thing you have to do where you blur your vision a little bit when you're trying to see a hologram. New Testament scholar N.T. Wright puts it like this: it's when Mary Magdalene is weeping that she sees the 2 angels. Peter and John have been to the tomb, and they've gone in and they've seen the grave clothes, but they haven't seen the angels, apparently. And he's often thought that maybe tears function as a kind of lens through which one just might see angels. So Mary's crying, and the angels ask why she's crying. Is it just me, or is that a dumb question? Why do they think she's crying? I'm guessing as a woman, she's often been diminished and is used to answering questions like these, so she tells them. Then she turns around, and Jesus is standing there. He also asks why she's crying and who she's looking for. They're standing in a garden, and she assumes he's the gardener. She figures Jesus' body must have been in the way, so she promises she'll get rid of it if he'll just tell her where this body is. And it's in that moment where everything changes. Jesus calls her by name, and she recognizes him. I love that this account happens in a garden. A garden is a place where new life appears after careful tending of the soil. Bodies are laid to rest in the soil. We are delighting in our church courtyard, and if you haven't seen it, please go out there after the service today. So many blooms are springing up. We have these beautiful mosaic butterflies out there. There's color and beauty everywhere. And I think it's quite possible you will encounter Jesus in the sanctuary, and I hope you do. But I'm also very aware that when people are asked where they experience God, most people say outside. It's hard not to see God in the sunrise or the sunset. It's hard not to see God when the bulbs are opening up and the birds are singing, or when barren winter trees are suddenly sprouting little green leaves and shoots. So many of us comfort ourselves when we are stressed or we're upset by just cuddling on this couch with a screen, a TV, or playing on our phones. But the greatest comfort that I experience happens every morning on my walks. They're the most important thing I do for my mental health. So many times I'm surprised by a porcupine sleeping in a tree, a bald eagle keeping watch, osprey flying overhead, or egrets standing in the river. Being outside helps me find my place in the family of things. I took this line from Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese, which says, "Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. It calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things." That's what Jesus is about. He goes from person to person, announcing their place in the family of things. He tells each one that they belong. He talks to people. He listens to them. He hears their pain. He is so present to them. And I never got the sense that Jesus walked around with some big to-do list or an agenda. It felt more to me like he would discover what he needed to do or what he was about as he interacted with people. His death was devastating for so many reasons. Who would now see people with that lens of God's love when Jesus is gone? Would anyone take that kind of care with people who are hurting? So did you notice that the moment that Mary recognizes Jesus is in the context of a conversation? Our theme for Lent was Christ as conversation. And each day we were asked a question. I hope you had some conversations this season, and if you didn't, it's not too late. Perhaps you saw Christ when you connected with someone. Today's question is, where do you glimpse resurrection? One of the powerful things about resurrection is that it's not a one-time thing. Spring is a whole season of resurrection. Resurrection happens when a relationship that seemed to be beyond repair begins to knit itself back together. Resurrection happens when a newly discovered treatment means healing for someone who was thought to be beyond healing. Resurrection happens when someone who has been excluded because they are LGBTQ or a person of color or an immigrant is finally welcome at the table. Resurrection happens when wars cease and people begin building their lives again. Resurrection happens when we stop destroying our planet and the earth begins to heal. Resurrection happens when we stop demonizing mental health issues. Here in Albuquerque, we can say that resurrection happens when it rains and snows after a long drought. We may not magically wake up today and feel like a new world is here. And yet, God is doing a new thing even now. A few weeks ago, the reading from the prophet Isaiah reminded us of God's promise. I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Author Arundhati Roy said, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. And on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. In text study this week, we talked about the mystery of the resurrection. Overall, we found comfort in the mystery of this story. We didn't feel a need to figure it out or apply logic. We just sat with it and allowed it to unfold. And one of the questions we will ask ourselves from time to time is, what's the takeaway in this story? The takeaways from the resurrection are too many to name, but today I'll give you 4. 1, begin where you are. Are you feeling grief or despair? Are you exhausted? Don't try and be something you aren't. Allow the risen Christ to meet you where you are. Show up and hear Christ call you by name. That is where the healing begins. 2, get outside. Notice new life happening in the change of seasons. You don't have to walk for miles to see this. You can simply pull up a chair outside your door and see so much. You can be sure you will find Christ in the natural world. 3, practice showing up for people. You don't need any answers. In fact, it is best if you don't have any answers, but you simply choose to be present to the one in front of you. Listen. Ask genuinely curious questions. Be kind. See where all of that takes you. 4, trust the mystery. Victoria Lours says resiliency and resistance at this time is not to solve the mystery of what is happening, but to widen your capacity to hold it. She calls us to live creatively in both the ache and the awe. We live in a world that has great cause for despair. People are being deported. Trans people are being erased. People of color are killed for no reason. The planet is being plundered. Every day feels like Good Friday. But Good Friday is never the last word. The good news this morning is that God, who created all things, is greater than death. and death will not have the last word. Helen Keller said, although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. Easter is here today. This is the day that Christ overcomes suffering. You don't have to make anything happen. God already has. You simply need to show up. The risen Christ will meet you where you are, call you by name, and show you the way. Amen.